Well, folk, you know you're in for a treat when you hear that tune, because it's time for another episode of the RecPoker Podcast. This is the Chats edition, but we also have a Forums edition every week, just talking strategy. I'm your host, Rob Washam, Rabman50 in the home game and at Rabman50 on Twitter. We have the best freaking job in the world, talking poker with our friends here on the podcast every Monday night at 7:30 Eastern, live on YouTube. Join us every week for free and win a prize. All right, we're going to be talking to Scott Lum in a moment, but first I have to mention that we're brought to you by Running Aces, the official sponsor of the RecPoker Podcast. Most of what we do here is free. We're a largely volunteer-based organization, so we depend on support from our sponsors and also from our premium members who take part in our training material and study opportunities for only $15 a month. Do you like talking poker with friends? For less than 50 cents a day, come connect over Zoom with other fun, encouraging poker players, all trying to get better, or sign up for free because everything starts with a free account at RecPoker, where all you'll need to join is an email address and a smile. But remember, you can always get your first month of premium for only $5 by using the code RecPoker at checkout. Now, they're letting me host the show today, and I can't understand why, but I'm only one man, and it takes a group, a gang, a village, a crew to make all the magic happen around here. We call this group of wizards the RECing Crew, and if you want to learn more about me or the rest of the RECing Crew, just go to RecPoker/crew, or you can just listen up because you're about to meet a few of them right now on the air, starting with producing co-host Chris Jones.
I'm Chris Jones. You can find me 5B5 on Twitter or 5x5 in the PokerStars home game. And I help run our monthly deep dive strategy segment. And right now we're talking about exploits and how we approach players who maybe don't play quite in the GTO realm.
I'm Joe Kulas. You can find me at JoeCoolPhD on Twitter, or you can find me at Elvita11 in the home game. I am responsible for PsyOps, which is a look into the psychological concepts that may influence your poker play without you even realizing it. We just finished our most recent workshop last week, and we'll be posting up on the Premium Network soon. It's a discussion with the Golden Blazer, also known as Brian Winter, concerning what it's like to become a poker grinder from other careers, and some hard truths about the impact that it has, particularly in terms of what you see online as being posted and something called the Facebook effect. Tune in, you'll get to find out a little bit about it on the PsyOps workshop.
And I am John Somsky, also known as Poker Geek MN Everywhere, and I help organize our home games. And as a reminder to everyone, starting on August 1st, we will be going back to nightly home games, a home game every night, a chicken in every pot, and occasionally there'll even be more than one home game in a night.
Can you say a little bit more about this chicken in every pot thing? I'm kind of hungry.
Yeah, that was probably a little bit of an old reference, even for Rob there. You know, going
that was even before my time. Can you believe it?
Yeah, that was said by Herbert Hoover. For those who are not,
I read about it in history class.
I mean,
all right. So
you're just channeling your own. We're missing Jim. He's playing in Vegas, and we needed some sort of esoteric saying for the audience that needed to come out.
There you go. Because I'm not very good at it, but John seems to be very well versed. Okay, I'm so pleased to be joined this week by Scott Lum, a new RECing Crew member here at RecPoker. Thanks so much for coming on the podcast, and we are very anxious to get to know you, Scott. So, tell us a little bit about yourself, starting with how did you find poker, or did poker find you? How did that story work?
So Thanks, Rob. I'm thrilled to be here. I mean, I've been listening to the Rec Poker podcast for several years now, and it's at the very top of my list of podcasts. So whenever it comes out, it's the first podcast I listen to, just because the content resonates so well with me. So I started poker probably 25 years ago, 25 years ago. My wife and I used to host a $5 home game for our neighborhood. So we did that for about 2 years. We had one, sometimes two tables going. And after a while, I started studying a lot. And then I actually ended up crushing the tournament. And people started dropping off because it was hard to be competitive. So that's how I learned it was a skill game and not just a simple card game. So after that, I started playing in a bar league. So my buddy Austin introduced me to a thing called it's a free poker bar league, called Global Poker Federation. It's a local group here in Washington. The company I worked for was a tech company, and we had daily poker tournaments, once every week. So every day of the week, except for the weekends, we would have a tournament from $20 up to $100. And that's really where I got to learn how to play, some serious poker. And because it was a tech company, the engineers that were, that were in it, these are all math guys. So they had as much passion for poker uh, as they did their jobs. So they spent a lot of time. It's like our own little mini two by two, where they posted daily hand strategies and shared ideas and all that kind of thing. And then I also joined the Eagles Club. So it was just a friendly way to meet a bunch of people, and they have two or three tables, which I still play. And then I joined another bar league. So we have a great restaurant here in the Pacific Northwest called Buzz Inn, and they have about 7 or 8 restaurants in the area, and each one hosts one on a different day. So we have daily tournaments, and that's what I play most of the time. And so now that I just recently retired back in December, I've been flying down to Vegas. I flew down 4 times. Just got back from the World Series about a week or two ago, and my wife and I are actually thinking about moving to Vegas.
Oh, wow. Wow. That'd be a big move. That sounds like our guy, Monkey System. Keith Brandt also retired in December, and he's been looking for a place in Vegas also.
That's
So,
awesome.
another Wrecking Crew member on his way to Vegas, it sounds like. So,
Hopefully, you guys aren't bidding against each other.
well, I think that maybe you should get together with Keith to make sure you're not looking at the same property and
You start bidding each other up.
yeah, start bidding each other up and understand, and all of a sudden figure out, oh, wait a minute, that's Keith.
Yeah. I mean, I could have continued working. So I enjoyed the job that I was doing. But on one of my trips down to Vegas, a couple years ago, I ran into this low stakes cash game grinder. His name is Jim, and really friendly guy, really nice. And he started kind of mentoring me on how to become a grinder. And it was very different than the traditional people who play cash games. He taught me how to think on an hourly basis, not to take unusual risks that can put your stack at risk. And it was a very interesting way of doing it. And he's been playing 1-3 for 15 years, and he drives a Tesla. It's his living, and he's able to do it in Vegas. So it kind of made me to think, maybe I can do that too.
There you go. So you mentioned you played in bar leagues.
Yes.
I used to play in bar leagues 21 years ago or so. And in my bar leagues, though, it was all free. and because they couldn't actually charge in Minnesota. They couldn't charge you to play poker, but you could play free, and then you'd get a gift certificate for the venue, so you could get a free dinner or something. But I found that the bar leagues were very, very, the people were just very inexperienced and really didn't know what was going on. And it was always a very turbo structure. So there was a lot of chips flying around. There's a lot of bad play going on. How did playing in those bar leagues help you develop as a player?
Yeah, so good question. So I started off in the free bar leagues, and I agree. I mean, the a lot of the people there, they're either beginners or they're just doing it as a social aspect. They come out, they have some drinks, and they support the restaurant, that sort of thing. And so a lot of them are not very serious. But during the pandemic, I started, doing a lot of studying, and because we couldn't play live, we started an online game, which is very similar to the one here we have at RecPoker, which is very competitive. So we continue playing online the way we did when we did live. So there were serious players, but we're playing 2 to 3 times a day. So not only did we get to play a lot more poker, but all of a sudden I discovered the HUD and the information that the HUD gives you. And I was able to play with my game, so modify my game to get my stats the way I wanted to, and figure out how to compete against different types of players. So what I actually would do is take the HUD of everybody, put it into a matrix, and then figure out this group of players, I'm going to play this way. This other group of players, they're loose aggressive, I'm going to play differently. The tight aggressive players were very different. So I was able to figure out how to come up with different strategies for these different groups, which was awesome. I mean, that was probably the single best thing that helped my game, is just, number one, playing a ton of hands, but then also seeing the stats and being able to adjust my game to get my stats to where I wanted to. So that was very helpful. And then the other bar league that I'm currently very active in, but the Buzz In group, it's a great group of people. We have the buy-ins are between $40 to $100. So it is actually very competitive. So what you would get similar to a casino, but the best part is there's no rake. So they make their money on the food and drinks and all that sort of thing, but they don't charge a rake. So if I'm playing in a $70 casino tournament, it's similar to a $50 free buzz-in tournament.
Yep.
So which is awesome. I mean, so it's very affordable. And because there's money involved, people do play more seriously. So we still have a wide spectrum, from beginners to people who are just socializing to people who are very competitive. So on Saturday nights, when we have an $80 game, and once a month we have a $100 game, we have people coming from the casinos coming in and playing in our league. So those tend to get very competitive.
So do you find that some of the people that are there for the more social aspect are falling away during those times because they see these sharks coming in trying to steal their money?
Not at all. I mean, because the prize pool gets so big in those tournaments. So first place on a Saturday night can get between $1,500 and $2,000 for first, and then maybe $1,000 for second. So these guys, even though the more beginning players, they have a chance to get lucky and a chance at the big prize pool. And if they score one or get to the final table, that funds the rest of the week.
That's true. That's very, very true. So you played bar leagues. You honed your chops in looking at HUDs during the pandemic while you were studying poker, and you listened to the RecPoker podcast. So why did you decide to join RecPoker as a RECing Crew member? What is your incentive here? What are you looking to accomplish within the RecPoker group?
So there's two things. So I talked about during the pandemic, we played the online poker. The other thing that I did was I held these little online classes. So the little Zoom classes where I taught, the basics of poker to the bar league people. So my kind of goal was to figure out how to take people who treat it recreationally and just get them a little bit better. They don't have to become great poker players, but they just need, if they learn ranges a little bit better and how to be a little bit more aggressive, just some really simple basics, they can increase their win rate. And it was really well received. And it was a lot of fun, but in the process, I tended to learn a lot and it helped my game significantly. So I still kind of do that, but I was looking for a great place to continue that, and RecPoker is a great place with the blogs, the podcast, and the opportunity to do the video. I thought that was awesome. So, and then the other thing is, when I retired, my background was in digital marketing. So I did content marketing, I did social marketing, and when I retired, I would take a look at the RecPoker newsletter, and I contacted Jim and said, "Hey, Jim, if you change the headline a little bit, you can probably increase your clicks, and or you're doing this with your social media, video. If you make these little tweaks to it, you can probably get more people to follow you." So I started giving him some tips. So he and I and Chris met a few times, and just to give him some ideas and all that kind of thing. So we were talking about some of the other things that I did in my other job was I created an online training for IT pros and developers, and which became very, very successful. We did video as well as text, and then we created ebooks and all this sort of thing. And so it's all these different things that we're looking at. Man, we could actually do this here at RecPoker. So Jim said, "Hey, why don't I come on board and join the RECing Crew?"
Nice. Did you have something there, Chris?
Yeah, actually, it kind of follows up a little bit about what you're talking about. It comes from the chat. First of all, shout out to, hopefully I get this name right, Marian Miskowski. First of all, it says, Scott Lum is a great choice for the crew. I met him in a local bar league north of Seattle, so first of all. But Marian has a question that I think sort of kind of resonates with what you were just talking about sort of bar league players and maybe like how to improve their game. But the question for you was, what are some of the biggest adjustments you've had to make when you sort of move from a bar league setting to some of the larger buy-in tournaments in Vegas and elsewhere? Like, what are some ways in which you're changing the way you're playing those different kinds of fields?
Oh, that's a really good question. So when I came back from Vegas a few months ago, I actually wrote a post for our group comparing the different levels of tournaments in Vegas. So you'll have between the $50 and $150 tournament, and how to compare it with the $200, the $200 to $400 tournament, and then the $400 and beyond. And this is not during the series, because the series is completely different. So I tried to think through how can I explain it in a very clear way. And I came up with a model that actually worked really well, even for bar leagues. So if you take a look at the percentage of players that are either beginners or they're just there to play cards, right? And you take a look at the percentage. In a bar league, you probably have between 60 and 80% of people who are there just to play cards. Then as you move into the pay bar leagues, you'll have more people who want to make money. And so they learn the game, they become more skilled. So they pay more attention to the strategy. So not only do they learn how to play their cards better, they're also focused on trying to figure out what the other players are doing, right? So they think through the strategy of the other players as well. And so that percent will change the higher up. So what Rob was asking was, do you find like in the higher buy-ins, like the $80 or 100, that it gets more competitive? And absolutely. So more skilled players come out for that. And then when you go to Vegas, what I find is that when you play in the 100 to $200 range, it's actually very similar to my paid bar league. So the bar leagues that I play in now are very similar to those. But as I move up to like the $400 level, you have some very competitive people they understand when the board, they understand board textures, and when the board texture doesn't fit the player, and they'll attack them. Right. So you have a lot more of those players. So as you go up in buy-in, the percentage of those things change. So the model I created was, so between $50 and $100, it's similar to the free bar leagues, where you have between 40 to 80% of newbies, people who are just playing their hand, that sort of thing. And then as you go up in cost, then you have more skilled players. And then when you go up to $400 and beyond, you have a lot more people. So, one of the models that you're probably familiar with, but not necessarily all rec players, is what they call levels of thinking. So, so if I take those levels of thinking and put it into this model of these tournaments, so you have a lot of people in the lower buy-ins that are 0 to 1, level 0 and 1 thinking. You have a lot of people, you have more people in level 2, the higher up you go, and you have a lot more people in level 3. So if you're not familiar with levels, spend some time. I'll probably write a post on it, in the future. But I've been playing around with that a lot more since I came up with that model, and it started to make a lot of sense. So when I got to the World Series, it was a really quick way to figure out who's at my table, what is the skill level, just by looking at that level. So who are the level 1 thinkers, who are the level 2 thinkers, and how many people at my table, and are they sitting to my right or sitting to my left that are level 3 thinkers, right? So I was able to try to develop my strategy based on those table dynamics.
Great. And then another follow-up from Paul here. Paul asks, sort of thinking about those bar leagues and small tourneys, what are some tips you have for somebody who's playing really at that level with a lot of beginners, for particularly Paul's wondering about, how do I increase my win rate against that kind of player pool?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, that's one of the things that I really enjoy chatting with our groups about. There's going to be a large percentage of people who just don't care. I mean, they're there for the social aspect, and that's fine. But there's a lot of money, left that is available if you win, and the game becomes a lot more fun if you have a better win rate. But they're very simple things you can do. So if you did nothing else, if you just did 3 things, you can increase your win rate. So study the ranges. So, get a program like Floptimal and just study your open rate ranges. What that will allow you to do is eliminate the crap hands, and the hands you start to understand that the hands played in early position, you have to be much tighter versus later, where you can expand your range. So if you can learn the opening ranges, that's the big thing. The second thing is to be more aggressive. So a lot of people in these bar leagues tend to be very passive. So a lot of them tend to be loose passive. So there's a lot of calling stations. So if they just can tighten it down and add some aggression to it. So when they're coming in, if they open raise instead of just limping, that would help their win rate dramatically. So if you can eliminate the open limping completely from your game, that would that would be tremendous, because by open raising, it gives you more ways to win. So it's not just You don't win just because your cards say you win, right? You don't, if you flop a pair, top pair, or you flop two pair, say, oh yeah, I won. By showing aggression, you can actually become much, win many different ways. So you can flop a great draw, or you can flop, the board can fit your texture because you're raised. You can have a middle suited connector, and ace comes, you continuation bet, and everybody folds, right? Because they don't know what your range is. But by playing aggressively, you can win more hands. And then
so you're learning. So you're actually learning how to play without making a hand.
Yes.
And that's where I think what you talked about, these passive players, their whole thing is, I want to limp in, I want to see cards that match my cards, I'm going to make a hand and win.
Yep,
and
exactly.
that's that level of thinking that you're talking about.
Exactly. And that for a majority of the rec poker people, that's the level that they're at. They're playing the cards that they have. And if they just add a little bit of that aggression, that's all that they really need to do.
I got one more follow up from the YouTube. Thanks for that. I think that's great advice for approaching this kind of field, because I think it really is helpful. Kind of two similar questions. Marion and Sharon write in. Marion writes, "You're a big proponent of encouraging women to sit at the table. How would you encourage more women to play live poker?" And Sharon writes, "What can we do to encourage more women to play? As a female player myself, I feel that we are often treated differently." What's your thoughts from bar league to WSOP? In the live arena, because I think we know that the online arena is actually, there are a lot more women playing online. It's the live setting where those numbers fall dramatically. What is it about the live setting, and what can we do to make that live setting sort of more encouraging and welcoming?
Well, I think the bar leagues and home games are perfect for women because they tend to be a lot more receptive to everybody who comes out. So whether they're beginning, whether they're a student, regardless of their who they are, the bar leagues tend to be very receptive to that. So one of the things I do love about the league so much is that there's a sense of community. So we come out to play on a regular basis, so it becomes very friendly. So I know Mary and I know Sharon from these bar leagues and from our home games, but because of the community, it encourages the women to play. So there's a lot higher percentage that I see in the bar league than I would see if I went to just our regular local casino. And especially when you go to Vegas, I mean, it's very few women out there. So, what I would like to see is, helping these women become more competitive. And there are a lot of very competitive women, poker playing women out there, but get them to be more. So if we have 20% women in the bar league, if we can get just a handful of them more to become, comfortable, playing in the casinos, playing in Vegas, that sort of thing, then I think it helps the industry tremendously. But I think it's the perfect nurturing ground for women.
It's funny you talking about that, because I had a little conversation with my wife earlier today. We were talking about poker, and we were talking about poker skill levels. And I really feel that in a percentage factor, there are percentage wise, more of the women that play poker are better than the men that play poker as a percentage of the total population of men versus the total population of women. In other words, the women that play are taking it more seriously and are probably working more towards it. And it's not as much of a recreational type of situation, or just, hey, I'm going to go throw some money around. They tend to take it more seriously. So I think and I'm just throwing this out there because I don't really have any stats to back it up. But it just seems to me that the women poker players I know seemed to be a lot more engaged in the actual game and the strategy of the game. I don't know if you found that yourself.
Yeah, I find that as well. And I can't talk because I can't necessarily talk because I'm not a woman. So there's a big thing going on right now with women in poker right now happening in Twitter. Talking about this kind of thing. But the I think part of the reason is because the women have to fight a lot harder if they're going to stick around. Because if they went to a casino, a lot of times it's not very friendly. That the guys, they tend to some, not all, some of the guys tend to attack the women, think they can bluff them, that sort of thing. So the women are sometimes intimidated, I think. So the ones that stick around, the ones that do become competitive, they had to fight a lot to get where they are. So that's just my theory on that. And I love the stuff that Maria Konnikova in her book talks about. The challenges of being a woman, and I think we definitely need to get more women into it because it helps make a well-rounded industry.
Definitely agree. Definitely agree there. So you said you were down to Vegas during the WSOP here. So you've played a little bit of the WSOP this year. How was that experience? What did you learn? What did you experience? How was it? What was your takeaway?
Yeah, it was an awesome trip. I didn't quite make enough to be profitable, but the experience itself was awesome. This was my fourth year that I've been down to the WSOP. I made my first two cashes in bracelet events. So I cashed in the kickoff and I cashed in the Gladiator, so which was awesome. But the fun experience, as soon as we cashed in the kickoff, they moved me to a new table and I sat right next to Daniel Negreanu. So Daniel was right to my right. And how awesome is that? So it was an incredible experience to actually watch him play.
It's good that you were on his left. I mean, that's the good part.
100%. And I only had 15 big blinds left. So I really only had one or two moves. So no matter what he did, it wouldn't impact me that much. But the people to his right, he was very loose aggressive. So within the hour and a half that he was there, he was 3-betting on a regular basis. So if he was coming in to play the hand, he was battling. If it limped to him, or it didn't limp to him, if it folded to him, he was raising. So he was very aggressive at the table. So it was great to watch him. But the best part about it is sitting with somebody like that, you can't pick up a lot of things watching a live stream. So even if you watch the live stream, you don't pick up on a lot of the little things, like watching his chatter and how he's able to mold the behaviors of the table dynamics based on what he says. So you can watch people freeze based on something that he says so that he can hit the nut flush on the river, right? So it was great to watch him do that. The other thing that was neat was I get to watch how he played certain hands and 3-bet and continuation bet, but a lot of times you don't get to see showdown. So when you watched his vlog afterwards, it was like, oh, that's how he played that hand. So it was great to actually see the hand develop. And even if we didn't go showdown, he talked about it in the vlog. So that was a great experience to do. But the neat thing to watch was how he shifted his attention from one thing to another. So one thing, he doesn't get breaks. During the breaks, people come up, they want to get selfies with him. Mm-hmm. He's constantly talking. I mean, he's a table captain and just talking and chatting, and the staff people are walking by and he's chatting with them. And it was awesome to watch him do that, but shift to his focus on the hand, on the current hand. And a lot of us don't have that capability. I mean, I was starstruck with the first half hour. I had no clue what went on at the table. When people were playing, I had no clue what the profiles of the people to the right that were attacking him, whether they actually had hands or not, because I was busy texting Sharon and Marion and all those people saying, guess who's on my right? Check it out. Check out the picture we took with each other. So I was starstruck for the first half hour and totally distracted. So it was great to see somebody who's able to shift his attention from being very distracted to being totally focused. And there were a couple times where between hands, so when he was not in the hand, I would just kind of glance over at him and he had his eyes closed, taking a deep breath and relaxing. You don't see that on a live stream. How a person like that is able to focus. So that was a great experience.
It was a learning experience too for you then.
100%. So I was able to pick up a lot, and that's what I try to do when I play against a player that intimidating or that good. I try to learn as much as possible. The second great one was on the Mystery Million. I was playing for the first 2 hours, and there were two players on my right that were attacking the table. So they were raising 50% of the hands between the two of them. And this quiet Asian guy sits down to my right, and immediately those two guys become nits. And I go, wait a second, something just happened. And he says, he looks kind of familiar. Is he, did I play with him at our local card room? Did I play with him at Buzz In? Who is this guy? And as soon as the table dynamics changed, I said, wait a second, something's different. So one of the guys mentioned, so I started looking him up, best Asian poker player, and he had a little Korean flag. So best Korean poker player. So it's always good to know who you're actually playing with at the table, right? So if it's possible to find out who they are, it's good to know what their credentials are. So I started looking it up, and one of the guys says, "Hey, Steven." So I typed in Steven, Korean poker player, and up came Steven Song, right? And a lot of people don't know Steven Song, but he was the 2022 GPI Player of the Year. And last year in 2023, he won 3 circuit events in 3 weeks. So this guy is a baller. I mean, he can play, but he's very quiet. He's tight. But when he is in the hand, he is going for it. So if you're in the hand with Steven, after post flop, you better be willing to play for stacks. So it was incredible to watch the table dynamics change that dramatically. And so I wrote another post for our group, is paying attention to the table dynamics can help you see who to attack and who to avoid.
That brings up another thing. While you're playing, do you take notes on the players you're playing with? Is that something that you do normally while you're playing?
That's something that I struggle with. So I definitely have a bunch of mental notes on the people that I play with on a regular basis. The reason I write these posts for my group, so it's just a Facebook group that we have for Buzz In. I take, I write these long posts that I just had a guy says, you write these great posts, but I never read them because they're so damn long. And I said, well, the reason I write them is because I have to write notes for myself anyway. So I might as well share it with everybody else. So that's how I do it. So afterwards, I do take a lot of notes, especially so the Steven Song thing became, the importance of really paying attention to table dynamics. So that's how I take the notes. I try not to take notes during the session because what I find that it knocks me out of flow. So one of the things that I try to do, not always successfully, is being very focused at the table. And, the ultimate is to try to get into flow states. So one of the things that I spend a lot of time studying is the research on, how to get into the zones, that sort of thing. And what I find is when I run deep into a tournament, things just drop off. I mean, I'm not distracted by anything. I'm totally focused. I can read people's hands. I know what they're trying to do. So I'm able to, I know when to bluff. I know when not to bluff, but how do I know that? Right. And it's all the experience that I've developed, but I'm not overthinking things. And it's similar to when I played, racquetball and sports like that, when I got into the zone, it's very similar. So when I find that when I'm most successful in poker, I'm in this flow state. Well, the challenge with that is as soon as you get analytical and start writing your notes, it knocks you out of that. So it's a balance. I try to figure out, do I spend time writing the notes, which are very, very, very valuable, or do I spend time trying to get into that flow state?
Very good. Very good response. That's something I get the newsletter every day from Jason Su, who's very big into poker with presence.
Yep.
And that's really what he's talking about, is being in the zone while you're playing. And you find that you don't have to analyze every little thing. It just comes to you. It's
Exactly.
just more of an automatic thing. And I remember that when I played golf, it was the same type of thing. If I got into the zone, I would hit very nice shots. If I got out of the zone and started thinking of other things, then that's when things would go haywire, right? So I really understand that, and that makes a lot of sense. And that would make it more difficult to take hand notes or hand history notes while you're playing.
Yep.
I got one more question for you.
Okay.
And before we go into our stake study stack, by the way, anybody in the YouTube chat, we do have our stake study stack coming up. So any names that you have that you want to give to Scott, as we all know what the stake study stack is by now. So think of those names and give us some suggestions in the chat. The last thing I want to really talk to you about before we go into the other things is, what does study look like for you? How do you study? I guess is the basic question.
So I consider myself a full-time poker player, not a professional poker player. So I don't make enough money yet to replace the income that I have. But I spend my full time studying and playing. So I read a lot of the books. So I'm reading Daryl Kearney's book on GTO Simplified. I just got his exploitative one. So I have those books, but 50%, I would say more than 50% of my study is on mindset, and the other 50% of that 50% is how to become a better learner. So I focus on not poker related things like how do elite athletes do visualization, or how do they train? So like I'll study like a skier, a downhill skier, and how they do visualization and visualizing the moguls. And I'll create visualizations like that in poker. So if you look at the forum, I think it was about a year ago, I posted something about how to crush with pocket jacks. And it started off just as a thought experiment of these two players were saying, I hate pocket jacks. Pocket jacks are the worst. And I said, what are you talking about? The top 10 hand. What would you rather have? Pocket jacks for every hand for the rest of your life, or any random hand? And they said, oh, any random hand. And I said, that's crazy. So I created this thought experiment for me of, what if you had pocket jacks for the rest of your life? How would you play? So what would you do pre-flop? What would you do when you're out of position? What would you do when you're out of position? And just mentally running that through my head for weeks on end. Like when I'm in the shower, when I'm gardening, when I'm driving, I would think through this process. And then I realized that's visualization. I mean, that's what the football players do when they practice their plays. They go in the mental rehearsal over and over and over again. And that's basically what I created. So I created, by accident, I created this little exercise that I posted up onto the Rec Poker forums. But then, So now when I'm studying something like GTO, or I'm creating balance ranges or three betting, I will create a bunch of visualizations on how to three bet out of position. What would I do? How would I three bet when I'm in position with an aggressive player, from the big blind? What would I do? So I create these mental exercises that I can repeat over and over and over again. So it's that repetition that I don't play since I don't play online anymore. It's that repetition that I don't have there, but I can do it mentally. So I practice a lot of that. I'll study a lot of other things like uh, philosophies, like the productivity philosophy of Kaizen in the Japanese side. And I showed you this chart that I'm creating for goal setting called the Harada method that Sohei Otani used. And I'm focusing a lot of my attention on creating a lot of my goals around these different things that are not specifically poker focused, but I'm trying to, exercise a lot of these different philosophies. And then what I call them, creating learning containers that I can plug in these different things from poker. So when I'm studying table dynamics or I'm studying profiling, I can plug into these different learning containers.
Oh, it sounds like a lot. Sounds like a lot more than I'm doing. I'll tell you that right now.
Well, it's a lot easier. So it's a lot right now because I'm learning how to learn, right? Mm-hmm. Once I learn all these different things, then I'll have all these containers that I can just plug into, right? So creating a visual set of visualizations for three betting becomes very easy because I've done it a few times with a bunch of other things.
Mm-hmm.
What do you have, Chris?
Oh, I've got a follow up from the YouTube, but I think that you didn't quite answer the question, but I think you almost did when you described this. But I'm going to ask the question anyway, and we'll see if those roads converge. Paul asks, if I go to Vegas and play in bigger buy-in tournaments, what are some adjustments I should make to my game? I fear I'm going to get 3-bet every time I open, and I won't have a plan. Do I just tighten my range? I don't want to just start playing nitty, as that can be easily exploited.
Yeah, that's actually really good. Yeah, so we covered a little bit of it. Before I went to Vegas this time, there are a bunch of things I studied. There are a lot of things I could have studied, but were all unrelated. So what I did, I focused on this column of content. So I studied how to profile players, how range-based thinking. So I spent a lot of time in Floptimal. I paid for their premium service to study the three betting ranges and all that kind of thing. And not only how I play it, but how my opponents will be playing it, and what they'll try to be attacking me with when they're on the button, right? And I'm in the big blind. So I'll focus on the different profiles, how aggressive they are, how loose they are, the range-based thinking, the table dynamics. So who are the people playing to my left? Who are the people playing to my right? And then creating exploitative strategies based on those things. So they're all kind of related when you take a look at it. And when I was there, it worked out really well because because it helped me to understand and feel comfortable at the table that my ranges were within a good area. And if people are attacking me, they're attacking me against my strong range, right? And if I have a bluffing balance range, then I can just let it go. So, and the key to that is becoming comfortable. So the first few times when I got attacked by a very aggressive, very well skilled player, it was very intimidating. But after a while, I was like, oh, I know what they're doing. They're doing this, right? And once you see this happening a few times, you develop a level of comfort that you come to expect it. So when you see a level 3 thinker, coming in and attacking because the board all of a sudden became very flushy, you kind of know what to do based on the strength of your hand.
Yeah, and I love what you said earlier in combination with that about the kind of the visualization thing. When Paul writes, I fear I'm going to get 3-bet every time and I won't have a plan. Well, we can build that kind of plan. Like, we can practice that kind of plan. We can imagine ourselves in these situations where people are taking aggressive 3-bet, and what are we going to do? Like, let's run that in our head before we get into that situation, so that when it happens, we do have a plan. Like, we do understand. And the first time that you 4-bet bluff somebody who's 3-betting too much and you get that through, I'll tell you, that feels really good. It feels really, really good the first time you start like building those into your game. So I love this conversation and where that's kind of going.
That's awesome.
You have something there, Joe?
Oh, I do, actually. I've actually been listening and kind of pulling pieces of what Scott has been talking about since the beginning when he brought up, why he thought bar leagues were important for women. The throughput to all of this is really a concept I talk about as fluency or automaticity. When you get in the zone, it's really a matter of the fact that you have had so many repetitions of something that it just happens automatically. When you see jacks, you're going to do whatever your play is. You're not going to be thinking about it. You're not going to be trying to figure out what you're supposed to do. And the vast majority of poker decisions actually should be pretty automatic, particularly pre-flop. And I think that particularly in terms of for women at the table, I really do like the opportunity that I would really recommend playing in bar leagues or these on-league leagues that you talked about, because it does give you practice at what it is that you're trying to do, so that when you go to the table, you feel confident. And if there's some jerk that's deciding they're going to yell at you because you dared to 3-bet them, you're going to feel confident that that's not the incorrect decision and the guy's being a jerk. So all of these different things that you talk about, even the visualization, which visualization in a lot of respects is much more for athletes are because they're trying to get repetitions in for their muscles to understand what they're supposed to do. And it's not quite the same. I mean, I don't need help in terms of actually putting the chips out there, but it gives you an idea and gives you practice of being able to know and say, this is the right play. When this happens on the board, when this, so on a single pair board with another hand and you're the pre-flop aggressor, you probably should bet 1/3 bet, right? Because it's either have it or you don't, and then therefore you're going to get a lot of folds with a very small bet, right? It just happened over and over and over again. And if it's coming automatic, then you can make deviations from it, but you'll feel very confident in terms of what you could do rather than going, it's paired board. What do I do? Do they have it or they don't? Because you can't figure that out. But you know that the repetition will get you there. So I think that there's a lot of good things in terms of how you're approaching, bringing these concepts in to massed practice across multiple different places, and then taking it into the most difficult place, which is going to be the casino, where most people are less friendly than they would be at, say, a bar league or on a rec poker or a recreational poker online league. So I think there's a lot of good information that's coming from me.
That's great. So are we ready do we have some names for Stake Study Stack?
We do. And I'm going to take this straight from the chat, Scott. So if you're not familiar, I think you are. You're a frequent listener. I'm going to give you 3 names. You're going to pick one that you want to stake in a poker tournament or cash game, one that you would like to study with, and one who you would just really like to take every single last one of their chips. And you're going to get 3 RECing Crew members from the chat here. So welcome. This is a trial by fire. We like to, welcome you in and then create some enemies along the way. So your 3 names are Joe Kulas, Jim Reid, and Kim Kilroy.
Yeah. So I would stake Kim. She has a very good record, so I would love to stake her. I would love to study with Joe just because I'm a mindset guy too. I love it. He was the guy I actually was the most afraid of because I just go based on mindset, based on what I read, but he's actually a trained professional. So that was awesome. And so who's the third person?
It's poor Jim Reid. Just take all his chips.
God, I would love to stack them. I'll stack them all day long.
And he makes it so easy. He just puts them in the middle all the time. They're just there for the taking. So
yeah.
Also, give you a peanut butter sandwich if you stack them. It's his general gift. So.
I'll take his peanut butter sandwich.
Okay, now we're going to go into closing the action. And we'll see how this goes. We're going to ask for an answer, quick answer. Don't think about it too long. And if you don't like the question, you can say pass.
Okay.
All right. So, what's your favorite poker hand?
Because I've won more than I lost with it, deuce 3 offsuit.
Oh my, the dirty diaper.
The dirty diaper. Even before it had a name.
Is poker a gamble or a skill game?
It depends on the person's personality.
Very good. What is your biggest poker pet peeve?
People who tank unnecessarily.
I like that. Is Die Hard a Christmas movie?
You know, Christmas is all about heart, so no.
Okay. Is Ace King a drawing hand?
No.
Is a hot dog a sandwich?
You know, if hot dog was listed in the sandwich section, it's a sandwich, but because it isn't, it's not.
Okay, I like that answer. And I'm not going to go to any other sandwich questions at all. I'm kind of totally over it. So all we know is that a peanut butter and jelly sandwich is a sandwich, and we'll just go with that.
And it helps you run deep in the World Series.
Evidently, yeah.
So I heard.
Jim is doing so well right now.
Yeah.
Should vacations be lazy or busy?
I wish it was lazy, but it's always busy for me.
Okay. Is a royal flush a straight flush?
Yes.
And what's your favorite poker venue?
Buzz in. So I play the bar league and I play it all the time. When I'm in Vegas, I love the win.
Okay. I hear that a lot. You know, I've never played there, so I guess I got to get there next time I'm in Vegas.
But I take with the one caveat to that, I do the best at the Orleans. So I like the venue at the Wynn, but I play the best at the Orleans.
All right. Yellow light, slow down or speed up?
Speed up.
What is your favorite family holiday meal as a childhood, in your childhood?
Well, I grew up in Hawaii, so almost any big potluck is fantastic. So Thanksgiving, Christmas, everybody brings it's a potpourri from all over the world.
Not spam.
Not spam.
I love spam. Yeah, so we constantly have a set of spam in our in the refrigerator all the time.
Okay. Are you pro chop or no chop?
Depends on the depth. So if it's shallow stacks, I'm pro chop. If we're deep stack, I'm no chop.
I like that. And who is your poker nemesis?
Zach Gergen. So he's a little guy that we play at Buzz In. I keep trying to bluff him with the deuce 3, and he always calls me down.
Okay. Now, last question. Looking back on your life, what's one thing you would do differently?
I was in sales for 20 years. I would have jumped into marketing, which was my passion, a lot sooner. And so it just basically follow your passion.
Oh, I love that. All right. Thanks a lot for coming on and sharing your journey with us, sharing your experiences with us. This has been absolutely great. Stick around because now we're going to go to John Somsky, who's going to talk about the home game results.
Yes, I am. And we have on July 17th, Digging 8 Graves got his first nightly victory for the year. Micmac 1024, Virginia Neely got her first nightly victory for the year. Captain Walleye got his first nightly victory for the year. Bet 33, Kim Kilroy won the daily mixed event for the second time this year. Now, this was the wrong event. Again, this is the second time I've done this. It was supposed to be stud high-low, and it was Raz. So just pretend like, the high hand won half the pots on that one. It has been fixed for this following Wednesday, so we will have at least one practice event before our July series. Lars opening, George Borden got his 4th international victory for the year. Osloburger, Tron Vidar Stensby got his 2nd international for the year. And Mike B, 172, Mike Bayer, won the LPP event for the second time this year, so he can contact info at rec.poker for his free month at Learn Pro Poker.
Point of clarification. Does a John mess up tournament that you win, does that count as an asterisk tournament?
No, because we were supposed to have one. It happened to be the wrong format.
All right, so
I don't think that quite counts as an asterisk. I mean, half the tournaments would be asterisk tournaments. You really want the asterisk
to be that elusive. It's one of those.
Exactly.
It's really hard to obtain. So
exactly.
Okay.
If it's just me making a mistake, that'd be like a dime a dozen.
Fair.
Hey, John, these were June's results, right? Or were you predicting what was going to happen in July, on July 17th?
Oh, yeah, these were June results. Maybe I was getting confused with July because this is the practice event for the July mixed event series.
I was just writing down who was winning. I was going to start taking, from what occurred.
Unfortunately, I do not know how to predict the future yet. Otherwise, I would be much richer than I am.
Yeah, they probably wouldn't recognize it at the sports book anyway, so you probably couldn't get any money on any action that way.
No. Maybe some peanut butter sandwiches from Jim. That's about probably.
Okay, does anybody have anything else?
I just want to point out that similar to Scott, that the first time I had John Somsky on my left playing, I was very excited and I couldn't play at all. So I know exactly what he's experiencing when he's done that. Of course, the first time I did play John, I did stack him with queens over jacks, but that's something different entirely. It was just luck.
I mean, who hasn't though, right?
Well, that's fair.
Well, yeah.
Well, yeah. I haven't. I mean, John typically stacks me every time I'm at his table, so I don't know how that works.
Fair.
I'm starstruck just being on this panel.
Well, we're glad you're part of this. We're really thanks for doing the interview, Scott, and we're glad you're part of the RECing Crew now. That's going to be great to have you on board.
Thank you.
All right, I just want to mention one thing before we go. Poker Coaching has a wonderful deal right now. The sale ends today, so if you've been thinking about joining the pokercoaching.com site, go to the RecPoker website and go to our resources and go to our Learning with Partners, and you will be able to sign in and get a nice bonus by using the code RecPoker. So just one of the things that we're proud of is our our partnerships with all of these different poker sites. I'm just really, I don't know what happened to me. I just went, I think I have low blood sugar. I'm not sure. Anyway, check out the Poker Coaching. It's got a great discount ending today. So get on that today. Anything else, gentlemen, before we call it a day? All right. So now, again, we'd like to thank Running Aces Hotel, Casino, and Racetrack for their support, and for all of you fans that come out every week to watch us.